Welcome back to Elseworlds, the best comic book related show in the multiverse. And today I am going to be talking to you all about Marvel's newest film, Morbius, starring Jared Leto, directed by David Espinosa, and it is the newest film in the Sonyverse, the one where Spider-Man villains have their own franchises. And this is going to be an interesting review. I saw the movie last night, decided to come home and kind of sit on my thoughts about it. Because you're all going to be kind of surprised what I say about this movie. Let me preface this by saying I went to the movie with low expectations, for one thing. I usually don't jump on the trains when it comes to reviews, when someone says it's shit or it's awesome, I don't immediately assume that's true. I just go in with an open mind and try to come up with my own thoughts about it, It just makes it an easier experience for me to go in with a blank slate and say, hey, maybe I like this, maybe I don't. Who knows? Anyway, this movie has gotten the worst reviews I've seen in a long time. Like, this is Fan Four Stick levels of bad. Up there with the first Suicide Squad, and I'm just going to be completely honest, I don't get the hatred. I really don't. Now, I'm not going to sit here and, start rambling on how it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. It's up there with Endgame and No Way Home as one of the best Marvel films. No, I'm not going to say that. I definitely don't think it's worth the 16%, I believe it was the last time I checked Rotten Tomatoes. I looked at that score and went, why? What's everyone's problem here exactly? I walked in, and the most I was really looking forward to was a fun vampire action flick. That's kind of what I got. And I'm not really complaining about that. Is it some flawless masterpiece? No, but it's definitely not as bad as everyone makes it out to be, at least in my opinion. There are some things that I disliked. Not really in the movie itself, but we'll get to that later. So let's just go through it. Jared Leto, really good. I've really liked this guy as an actor over the years. He's not my favorite Joker. I mean, I do appreciate him. You can see I have his Funko Pop right there. I never disliked his Joker. I thought it was a fine addition to the Joker legacy. I always like when a different Joker adds their own flavor, and I feel like he brings a lot to Morbius. When he needs to be a dark anti-hero, I think he nails it. When he needs to be funny, he actually brings a lot of comedy. Not that there's a lot of comedy in this film. That's one of the things I really liked, was that it really stuck to a dark tone. It didn't go for that MCU style of humor where it pauses the film every 5 fucking seconds just so it can make you chuckle. And sometimes that works. Don't get me wrong. There are movies that really nail that, but then there's sometimes like Ant-Man and the Wasp where it's just oh my god, will you stop? Yeah, Jared Leto, he nails the character in my opinion, and I really want to see more of this character. Even if this movie flops, I hope this isn't the last we see of him. Matt Smith plays the villain in this film, and oh my god, this guy steals the show in every scene he's in. It kind of succumbs to that Marvel cliche where they basically just make the villain an opposite version of the hero. Just, you got Morbius, here's the evil Morbius. That's pretty much what he is. He's an evil Morbius. But whenever he's on screen, Matt Smith, he is very charismatic. He's very bombastic. He chews the scene, but not to the point where it's irritating, but to the point where it's just you're having fun, I can tell. And I'm always a big fan of Matt Smith. I love his career, especially the Doctor. I love the 11th Doctor. He was my favorite Doctor till Peter Capaldi came around. And whenever he and Morbius are doing their thing, I thought it was the best part of the film. The side characters are fine. They don't really add anything amusing to the story, but they do their job. They're fine. I really dug the horror tones in this film. I wish they kind of stuck with it a bit more instead of going into more horror action, but when they do horror, there's this one scene in the hallway that I absolutely loved. And to me, that was another standout scene in the entire film. But there are nuggets of those throughout the film. Little bits of horror that really fit the character of Morbius, and I was really glad they didn't just go full-on action movie with it through the whole thing. But when there is action, it's pretty damn good. Now, again, this isn't like The Batman or Endgame or one of the top-tier action films like John Wick or something like that. I'm not going to sit here and explain how, this is going to be one of the most amazing action films you have to see. There's this scene you're going to see is just it's like they're the warehouse fight from Batman v Superman. No, there's nothing like that. But there's nothing that really made me like, oh, this is just awful. Oh, no, there's nothing like that. The only thing that I really could accept was that they polished the CGI just a little bit. It wasn't enough to take me out of the film, but there were times where the CGI could get a little cartoonish, which is weird considering how much they delayed this film. You would think they'd be able to work on that, but I guess not. Now, one of my only issues with the Sony films, even the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, is that I never really get any good cinematography out of them. Like, you get some good ones, like No Way Home had the best cinematography of the whole trilogy, in my opinion. But Venom Let There Be Carnage, and even some of the other Spider-Man films, there's always just this plain look to them. I don't know what it is. There's always something that's like, you could have filmed this a little better, in my opinion. Morbius, on the other hand, has some really nice looks to it. Even when it's just shots of the city, you know, those things you get in every superhero film where it's like, oh, establishing shot of the city, panning shot over the city skyline, you know, stuff like that. It all looks nice. There's a nice use of color, especially because of whenever Morbius uses his echolocation, or bat radar, as they say in the movie. Yeah, whenever he's doing that, there's this nice use of colors and the environment, like, turning into particle effects around him as he uses his echolocation. I thought that was a really neat touch. There's this one scene in, like, the third act where he uses it, and there's these, there was green and red lights that are doing that particle effect, and it was a really nice touch. And overall, the whole movie had a nice look to it. It was really refreshing to see that. But then, this is the guy who did Life, and I thought that was a really well shot film. So, one of my only complaints about the film, the actual film itself, is that it's a little short. I wish, I know this movie went through a lot of problems. Some things were cut out because it was supposed to come out originally before No Way Home, but then it got delayed. No Way Home came out first, and now the movie wouldn't make much sense with these certain scenes, so they got rid of them. And maybe there's some scenes that I feel like should have been kept. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I feel like it could have done better in that regard, but either way, there's a few times where the movie just feels a little rushed. There's times where, like, time passes and you're just like, wait, how did that person just get there that quickly? And oh wait, we're already here. What? Little messy in areas when it comes to the pacing and the editing. I feel like they could have done that just a little bit better. Now I'm gonna get into my one genuine big flaw of the film, and this actually doesn't have anything to do with the movie itself. The actual movie, to me, is fine. It's just a fine film. But then they actually do try to go Marvel with it. They do post-credit scenes. Now, I love a good post-credit scene when it's done well. These were possibly the worst post-credit scenes ever in a Marvel film. I'm not kidding. The first one's okay, I guess. It doesn't actually explain itself, really. I mean, it does, but I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it just kind of just happens, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, fine, alright. Then you get the second one, which is really just part two of the same post-credit scene. You really could just merge them together, would have flowed a lot better. Anyway, you wait a little bit longer in the credits, you get the second one, and at first, it's got the setup for a cool post-credit scene, but then it devolves. And there's dialogue that's spoken going, oh, good God, what fifth grader wrote this? I hate to say things like that, because I feel like, hey, you know, not every writer's got their perfect days, but this is clearly a rushed post-credit scene that was done during the reshoots that happened not too long ago. And, no, sorry, my friend, that was bad. That was just bad. I hope it does lead to something that's interesting. I hope that's followed up, but, oof, that was not a good post-credit scene. But, to me, that post-credit scene doesn't really affect the movie itself. As a film, Morbius is fine. It's really just a fine film. It does not break any new ground. It's not a masterpiece, but I don't consider it this absolute dumpster fire that so many other people are calling it. I really don't understand the hate for this film. And that's what brings me to something that I've actually been annoyed of for these last few years. I mean, like the last 10 years, probably. Is that we live in an era where if something is not like a 10 out of 10 perfect, spectacular, awesome, epic film, it's a god-awful piece of shit. Like, you ever notice that with a lot of people these days? They either go from one extreme to the other. There's no in between. There's a 1 through 10 meter there for a reason, guys. There's many layers. There's many levels to it. You don't have to always go 1 or 10. There's always just 2 extremes to it, and that to me gets a little annoying these days. Because, like, I'll listen to these reviews, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I can kind of see why you might think this is a disappointing element to it, but it's not that bad. At least in my opinion. Maybe it's just me. I've always been a bit more optimistic when it comes to films, so maybe that's just me. Anyway, my final thoughts on Morbius is that if you go in not expecting this No Way Home level comic book film that's going to bring together this massive universe through connective tissue, and you just go in looking for a fun sci-fi vampire film, I think that's what you're going to get. It could have been better. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. I mean, some people are calling this like on the same level as Halle Berry's Catwoman. Excuse me. No. To me, the movie gets a solid 7.5 out of 10. I'm not gonna go rush to see it again. I'm not even gonna rush to go buy it on 4K Blu-ray or anything like that, but I had a decent enough time with it. I had no big issues about it other than those post-credit scenes. Overall, had a lot of fun with it. The powers were cool. I thought the way they explored vampirism was really refreshing and straight out of the comics where it's more sci-fi based instead of, mystics. There's no weakness to sunlight or anything like that. I think it was just a cool sci-fi horror action film. That's it. It's just I know I'm kind of sounding like a broken record, but I just cannot fathom why this movie's getting so much hatred right now. Anyway, go in with an open mind and tell me your thoughts. Did you love the movie? Did you hate it? Or were you like me where it was not terrible, but not great either? It was just kind of okay? Or I'd say it's at least decent. Yeah, I'd say it's decent. With that said, hope you all have a fantastic day. Make sure to click that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe. Click that bell icon for more content updates on this channel. And I'll see you all next time in the multiverse.